Welcome, welcome. The best thing you can do is to be able to share with someone else that you think will actually need this kind of talk. This is really sharing, okay? This is me sharing with you how we can live our best lives, how we can be able to activate what is deep inside of us. We all have callings, we all have giftings, we all have ideas, we all have, and just like I said, make no mistake to think that your mind is infertile. That is so wrong. You have a fully functioning brain, okay? That means that you think about so many things. But do you know what happens, and what really hurts me is that we talk down on ourselves all the time. We don't even wait for others to be the dream killers. We kill our own dreams by speaking negatively, by trashing them, by pushing them away, by thinking they are nonsense, they are, stupid, they are silly. That is what we think. Why? Because we have not taken the time to activate even the seediest of things, and they amounted to something. Everything that you see on this world, whether it's a camera, whether it's a bulb, whether it's as in everything that you see, whether it's a book, whether it's a journal like this, someone sat down and thought about it. Not even sat down, maybe it crossed their mind. Maybe they saw another journal and it crossed their mind. They're like, you know what, I need to be able to do a journal, like this. And all of a sudden, they did not. They sat down and thought more about it. They encouraged the thought, entertained the thought, and did the things that we talked about first. I hope that you can be able to revisit them. If you're just joining us, go to part 1. Make sure that you watch part 1 before you come to actually part 2. And in this part, I want us to talk about, how we talk about SMART goals, and we say, and the reason as to why we have all that talk of SMART goals, it's because someone was thinking, you know what, I need to be able to push people into action, into activating, into not just sitting down with their thoughts. And so they came up with the SMART goals, okay? And one of the things is the measurable bit of it, and even being time bound. And now I want us to talk about the time bound, because we have talked about our goal being time bound for so long that now we have normalized it and it makes no meaning. Now, I tweaked it to a 90-day set, okay, for me, okay? So whatever I do, whether I was writing a book or shooting a course or whatever I do in my life, everything that I start, I cap it and give myself at least 3 months. So when I give myself 3 months and say, I'm going to cap it at 3 months, and then I will measure, evaluate, reflect, and see what I have done. But if I said that by this date, I should have this, so that means I have given myself in 3 months. 3 months, that is like how many days? That's like around 92, 93, or 90 days. So I cap it and say, okay, by this date, I should have. Even in my weight loss journey, it has been in chunks of 3 months, but by 3 months I want to have lost maybe and sometimes I'll be very realistic and I'll be like, okay, maybe like 3 kilograms, okay? So if in 3 months I've lost 3 kilograms, that is progress. I'm not going to put myself up to, I should lose a kilo in a week. I'm like, that is, in my heart, I'm like, that is unrealistic. I'm going to put myself under so much pressure for no good reason. So if I really want to activate from an idea of losing weight to an action of actually losing that weight, then I should be able to give myself realistic times and say, okay, by 90 days, I should have lost this amount of weight. So if I get to that and I evaluate, I'm like, okay, how did I let myself down? What exactly happened? What took place? So I have enough time to be able to actually do that. So you realize that if you give yourself a capping time, if you give yourself a particular time and say, by this time, I should have finished my book. By this time, you are actually accelerating your momentum. You're telling yourself you don't have much time, because if you just conceive it or perceive it or get an idea and you give it endless time, that means you are in no rush, or you don't have any measurable amount of time to look forward to, and that means you don't even create a good speed or a momentum to reach that goal. So that means if I give myself the 3 months, and I'm like, within this period of time, I will have accomplished this particular thing. That means I'm looking at the finishing line and I'm calculating the time left, and so I'm either increasing my working time, I'm either increasing my productivity or the time that I spent doing that particular task. Why? Because I have a goal in mind. Just imagine if the football players or soccer players were in the pitch, the field, and they just didn't have a goalpost. So that means, or maybe they had an endless thing. You dribble the ball to where? That means you actually, and you dribble the ball until when? Just imagine if we were watching a match for endless time. These people have time, okay, that you know what, this is what we do, this is the amount of time we have for first half, this is the amount of time we have for second half. So work within that time to make sure that you get the goals that you need and get the points that you need. Work within that time. Now that is so so wise, because then you literally see they are sweating even in the last minutes. That's why even in the last 1 minute of the game, no one is backing down, because they're thinking, you never know, we can get a goal. You can just never know. You know, maybe we'll chance on this. Maybe we'll be lucky to do this. Maybe we'll flip it in the last moment. You literally see that they are giving it their best. But just imagine if there was no time, anyone would be dribbling the ball, just dodging the ball, doing anything, because I mean there is no set amount, you know, so you get tired, you just rest. But just imagine you start and this is what happens. I will go back to the course creation, because these are things that I've set for myself and I've done for myself. That is why I'm sharing them with you. So when I set up the issue of the idea of creating this course, you realize that I went through all the first steps, you know, to set myself up for the task. Okay, and so when I say that by this date I should have finished this, I walked that journey literally with the people that I was coaching, with the people that I was training. Okay, and I walked the journey with them because I put a time limit for myself, and I say that within 3 months I should have done, or I should have shot this amount of videos, I should have done this amount of live sessions, I should have done this amount of, you know, check-ins. So I set the time for myself. And so when I got in the middle and I felt like I was getting tired, or maybe the focus was, you know, getting distractions, I remember it during that time. And this is really crucial. During that time when I set out to start, I even got sick. I remember that is around the time I actually got my first miscarriage. And while I was in the hospital, on the hospital bed, I was thinking, while I was being wheeled into the theater and, you know, getting out of the theater and coming back to the bed, I did a live session with the people in the mentorship, in the Accelerated Mentorship Academy. And I told them, I'm on the bed, and someone will think that is insensitive, or you are not so sensitive to your body. I knew that I had gone through a mental breakdown because of the miscarriage that I had gone through, and I knew that I could not redeem that, but I knew there was a class of people that were waiting for me, and I knew I needed to, that momentum had already been built, and I didn't want to lose that momentum. On my hospital bed, I had a session with them. I remember when I told them, they all broke down and they were like, but, and until this time, they usually give testimonies about that. I mean, she's the most selfless woman that we have ever seen, because she will go to any length to make sure that we are facilitated, that we are trained, that we are mentored, that she's holding our hands. And that is not, because by the time someone gives that testimony, it's not because you told them give that testimony, it's because they witnessed it. It touched them, and they firsthand they saw the power of consistency. First time they saw the power of commitment. And most times I usually tell them, you have no excuse whatsoever whatsoever, you have no excuse to not get things done. Once you commit to something, once you decide to be consistent, you have no excuse not to get things done. But I would never have that authority to speak into their lives that way if I had never maintained or even built more momentum, being consistent, being committed to that vision, and to helping them out, and to training them, and to holding their hands. Why? Because when I set the time and say that by this time it should be finished, indeed I took the run towards that finishing line. Maybe it's going to be 60 days for you, maybe it's going to be 90 days for you, but what 90 days do, or what 3 months do, that you have consistency, you have enough time to lay it out, you have enough time to act it out, you have enough time to activate it, to put it into action every day. And by the time that time elapses, you have enough time to reflect, okay? You have enough time to evaluate, and you have enough time to restart whatever journey that you need to restart. So that has really worked magic for me when it comes to activating. The other thing that has worked magic for me is having a drop list. Now, a drop list, I call it, or I term it as the things that I should not do, because for everything that you're going to do, there has to be something that you're not going to do. You realize that once you get out of your comfort zone, there are things that you're dumping for better things, okay? So most of the times we write the goals, we write the things that we want to do, but we never write down the things that we don't want to do. But what I have found out, that when I write down the things that I don't want to do, most of the times I keep them fresh in my mind, that even when they come knocking at my door, I'm like, no, I am not doing you. No, I am not giving you time. No, I am not concentrating on you. I have better things to concentrate, because I have written down the things that I want to concentrate on or do. But again, I have taken time to write down my drop list. For example, if I say I'm not going to have mindless scrolling of the phone every time I get a hold of my phone. There are so many times, by the way, I have just put my phone away, and I know so many of you maybe have tried to reach me on WhatsApp or maybe call and you can't access me, because in that time I have zoned out everything, and I'm like, within this time I am just not going to do A, B, C, and D. I have written down my drop list, and most times I will write down my drop list every single week. Every single week. Every time I get to office on a Monday, I will go to my journal, and in my journal I have things that I have written down that I want to do, and the things, because then you have tasks, goals for the week. I have goals for the week, so I will write down the goals for the week. But against the goals for the week, I will write down the things that I know I will not do. Why? Because I know these things have stolen time from me in the past. The mindless scrolling of the time of the phone. Okay. Number two, the having yes, I can leave room for emergency meetings, but again, if it's a meeting and I don't really need to sit in it, or I am not so needed, or it's not so crucial, I will put it away. So I'll be like, you know what, spending 2 hours in a meeting that is not adding up to what I'm building this week, I'm not going to do that. So I make sure that I have my priority meetings set up, and then the emergency meetings, I leave room for that. But if there are those meetings that just happen, and you know that, okay, I can sit in it, but I'm not so needed, and I don't do those. So I put that down as well. And I will put down, for example, if I say I'm not going this week, I'm not going to go out for lunch and spend 1 hour or 2 hours. I'm like, that time is so important to me, I need to redeem it. So this week I'm not doing that. Especially if my children are in school, I'll be like, no, I don't have the luxury of getting out for lunch at 2 p.m. or at 1 p.m. because then at around 4, I need to be able to pick them up from school. So I will extend, and sometimes I will not even have lunch. I'll be like, you know what, I'm not having lunch. I will make sure that I redeem that time to do the things that I need to do, so that by 4 I pick them up and I can have a late lunch at home after I drop them at home. So you realize that there are things that I am dropping. If it's a salon visit that I need to drop, that I know, okay, this week I had to go to salon, but again, in order for me to redeem that time, I have to be able to drop it. I can be able to do it over the weekend, or I can do it next week. I don't necessarily have to do it this time or this week. So I make sure that I drop them, okay? If there was something that I had formally maybe agreed to, and some of you will say, but maybe you're selfish or you're insensitive. Yeah, it's possible that I could have said yes to something. It could be a party, it could be an outing or something like that with some people. And then all of a sudden, I look at that week and I know that in order for me to have that time, like really, I must double up my effort, or I might lose that engagement. So what I do is I talk to myself, and I'm like, I have Monday, I can get out of this deal. I can actually make a call for a deal or for an outing that is supposed to be on Friday. I can make a call and say it's not possible, I'm not going to do it this week. So, you know, I am dropping down certain things. If I say I'm not going to pick certain calls, I will not pick certain calls. If I say, so you realize that there are things that if I say I'm not going to sleep to this time, I'm not going to sleep to that time. So there are a few things that I will be dropping while I am concentrating on my goals, but mostly not concentrating on my goals. I concentrate more on the action that is going to get that goals activated. I don't concentrate more on the goals. But when I look at my drop list, I know that I have traded. For me, it's a trade-off, okay? That I have to trade this in order to get this. Even John C. Maxwell says that you have to say no to good things in order to say yes to great things. So in order for me to say yes to greater things, I have to say no to good things. Sleeping in, that is a good thing, but I will say no to it, okay? I mean, just strolling out, you know, for lunch, because we are surrounded by all places where you can have lunch. Strolling out for lunch, that will be an easy thing, but I would say, no, I'm not strolling out for lunch. If I go out, maybe it will be for a meeting, or maybe it will be because this is the time that I have. Do you ever calculate the time? We lose so much time during the day because we don't say no to certain things, okay? So for me, that has really worked for me. Drop as much as you can. It could be that lazy talk with your colleagues at office. Whenever you get in office, you have that lazy talk for about an hour. You go to office, so there's someone who usually comes to your office and knocks, and they have nothing important to tell you. So you say, you know what? You even note down and say, this is maybe Nancy. I'm just giving a random example. Nancy usually comes here, but when Nancy comes, I will tell her, please, a moment, because I am still engaged. And indeed, I will come back to you when I find the time. So Nancy will learn that every time they come and peep, you tell them you're busy. So every time they'll be like, but she's always busy. Yeah, so do you see that that is one thing dropped off your list? Yes, it's one thing that has dropped off your list. So you realize that you have dropped that maybe for a good 1 hour workout later in the day, because then you're able to achieve your set goals for that particular day. So say no to good things so that you can have enough yeses to the great things in your life, okay? And something else that I usually do, I usually mimic the startings of things. For example, so many of us, just like I said, I write my drop list every week. So every week for me, it's a brand new start. Every month, it's a brand new start. Every quarter is a brand new start. So you realize that if I do that, then I am setting, I'm mimicking fresh startings, just like you have a year start and people are writing their goals. When a quarter starts, people are reflecting on their goals. Now, for me, I bring it down to a weekly, I bring it down to a monthly. I mimic fresh starts so that I can be able to rejuvenate or to reignite my momentum. So if I know, it's a new month, so I pump myself up, and then I'm able to actually draw closer the actions that I needed to do in that quarter. And I'm like, this is a new month. I pump myself up. I speak to myself, the positivity. I set the things that I need to set, and I make sure that I have the timelines. I make sure. So I mimic the new beginnings, because then that is a way of me to trigger, okay, Remember, I have already visualized what I want. Now I need to trigger, I need to tap into that energy. But how I trigger that momentum, how I trigger that motivation, because motivation is not going to come from anywhere else. Just imagine whatever you want to do, you want to begin a business and you're waiting for motivation from external sources. It's never going to get you started. The moment you have the motivation within you and you're like, you know what, I'm not giving myself excuses. I have set my 3 months target. By 3 months, I want to have started this. So can I do my survey? Can I do all these things? So you are on the way to doing these things. You're having motivational triggers, and your motivational triggers could be listening to a certain podcast, could be watching this show, could be, as in you have your motivational triggers, and then you mimic new beginnings. Every month you're like, I'm closer to my goal. I'm closer to creating this. Oh, I am creating this. I'm saying things and saying yes to greater things. So you realize that you're doubling up on your motivation, inside motivation, because your inner motivation is what matters. It's not the outside validation or external motivation that is going to get you started. Yes, you need the triggers, but what you trigger most is in the side of you. So even if you have all these triggers, for example, I will look at a trigger as you see a matchbox, and you need to be able to light up a candle. Just imagine if you have the trigger that you have triggered the light. Yes, the matchbox is lit, but again, you're trying to light the candle, but the wick of the candle has water in it, or has water, so it can't light. Just imagine that is how your internal or inner motivation is. If it cannot light up, no project will take course. If it cannot light up, no idea will formulate. If it cannot catch up, no business will be done. If it cannot catch up, no weight is going to be lost. If it cannot catch up, no relationship is going to be created. If it cannot catch up, no lasting marriage is going to be created. If it cannot catch up, so your internal system, your inner motivation matters. It's triggered by external factors sometimes, yes, but again, if it cannot work on its own, then no amount of external triggers is going to ignite or even trigger that motivation. So I want you to look at that and be able to know that, yes, I can consume, I can get the motivations, I can hear it's time, go for it. You know, everyone can clap for me, everyone can tell me I'm the man for the job, but if I don't feel that I'm the man for the job, if I don't know that I'm the man for the job is never going to be done. Okay, so I need you to be able to go through it and know that you can actually do that. The socialization, I told you that I often share my dreams, and I usually share with my husband, I usually share with my team. They keep me accountable, because accountability is something else that is very crucial for you to turn your ideas into action, to have an action mindset. Because when I check in, for example, mostly on Fridays, sometimes on Saturdays, I usually check in with Tim, and I'm like, okay, I purpose to do this, but I have not been able to hit this goal. I've not been able to do this. Or he will even ask me, oh, you told me on Monday that you're working on this. So I feel bad to tell him, oh, I did nothing about it. So most of the times I'll be like, you know what, I'm not lying. I do not lie to myself, because part of us transitioning from ideas or thoughts to action is being very honest with ourselves, that this is the progress I've made, or I have not made any progress at all. So there are times I will tell him, sincerely speaking, this week, nothing done. And he'll be like, if you really need it done, you really have to up your game. And sometimes I will tell him that, by the way, I did this, I made this phone call, I made this, I did this, I did this. The other person that keeps me accountable so many times is Coach Fifi. You know, she will even listen to some of the videos and get out action points and tell me and remind me, you said you will do this, and you said you will do this. So hers are really random. They're not weekly check-ins, but they keep me accountable, because when I promise something, then I should be able to do it. So you realize that you cannot grow in isolation. That is why even when it comes to accelerated mentorship, when it comes to hold my hand, there are communities, spaces where you can be held accountable. When you tell us that I need to start a business in 3 months, after 3 months, we will ask you, what have you done? Have you been able? We've been checking in about the weight. So most of the times I could hear people say, I've lost these kgs, I've lost these kgs. And whenever I would even tell them about my own story, that, you know what, so far I have lost 15, I'm moving on to the 20 mark, and everyone is saying, yes, just, you know, keep going. So you realize that you need a community around you. You cannot grow in isolation, okay? And you cannot activate your ideas or turn them into action without a community. So that could be a friend, okay? Just have a weekly check-in and tell them on Monday, be sincere enough to give them the things that you want to do, and then be sincere enough to check in with them how far you have gone and what you have been able to do. Now, those are random things that I do, but I believe that if we can be able to do those things together, if you can be able to activate them in your life, you will be able to see the results. Because what we need more than anything, remember, to grow your ambition, to increase your results, okay, to make sure that you are better. So how can you increase your results? By being an action-oriented person, by developing an action mindset. No one has ever won, no one has ever been successful, no one has ever been significant in this life without activating whatever is on the inside of them, and without acting on whatever is on inside of them. So I need you to be able to act. Stop giving excuses, stop looking away, stop looking for outside or external validation and external motivations. They can stimulate you, yes, but the momentum comes from right here and the things that you choose to do. So share your goals, write your goals, but more than anything, break down into sizable chunks and make sure that you act on them. So act, and make sure that you act more. It's doable, it's achievable. If I've gotten to see the results, that means that you will get to see the results. But cross over to the acting side and make sure that you do it. From me to you is a good night, and have yourselves a wonderful time.